The media does not know what to do with this story, the Epstein Files. Neither do the authorities for that matter. It's just too big. The vast trove of 3.5 million pages, the incredible revelations, and still we haven't seen all of it. It's too big, it incriminates too many people, from billionaires to princes to financiers to movie stars to assorted power brokers around the world. And most of all, it incriminates Israel. It appears, as predicted, to be a blackmail operation, yet nobody is properly following the money, at least not in the world's mainstream media. Too big, too hard. Instead, they're turning it into a joke. Other mainstream media outlets are blaming the Russians or saying that voters don't care. It's another line being run by the Murdoch empire, that voters don't care about the Epstein Files, the most infamous pedophile ring in human history. Now, Murdoch's flagship here was splashing again for probably the 30th time yesterday on Randa Abdel Fattah, a Palestinian-Australian author and critic of Israel, which the Zionist lobby managed to have banned from the Adelaide Writers' Week, and the Adelaide Writers' Festival collapsed, all due to the Zionist influence, to the foreign influence. It all goes back, if you follow the money trail, to this guy, Epstein, and his unholy and undue effect on world affairs. So here we are, little-known Palestinian author Randa Abdel Fattah, which the Israel lobby had managed to have banned. They're calling her the last, front page splash. Nothing on Epstein Files front page splash-wise, no investigation, just discarding it. And they're calling Randa the untouchable extremist. Now, what is extreme is trafficking children. What is extreme is rape, torture, murder. There's even allegations of cannibalism in there. I mean, it is gruesome stuff. What is extreme is child exploitation. And what is extreme is that you could be so depraved as a media organisation or a government, you could be so depraved to support this, to gloss over it, to bury it, to discard it, and still endorse the things which have arisen from this abomination. Endorse the wars, the corruption, the draconian laws here in Australia, crushing free speech, crushing freedom of assembly, putting people in jail for tweets, for political comment. They have all missed the story. They can't see the wood for the trees, or if they can see it, they don't want to know about it, because this story, to put it in historical context, and we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves here because we're living in the present and not the future, but in 100 years' time, surely the historians will look at this as a watershed in the decline of Western civilization. And when we started going through these files, and they're horrific and very enlightening as to the nature of power, when we started having a look, we tweeted our first take, which we stand by, is that this is confirmation that Australia's greatest ally, America, the country which determines our foreign policy, is run by a pedophile protection racket, probably by a pedophile in chief, covering up a blackmail ring for Israel. That's our take. That's the guts of it here. The story is immense. It's a watershed. It's the end of American empire. They won't be turning the lights off or turning the little sign on the shop around to say, open tomorrow. There's none of that. It's a slow decline. Now, the Australian angles. We had a look at the database early through the OCCPR leaks database in London, and we couldn't find much to incriminate these people. We did mention just on Twitter that, yes, Kevin Rudd and Catherine Keating were there and a couple of others, but the guts of it is there's no pedophilia connection. This guy Epstein was a networker who obviously liked to blackmail people and co-opt them. He was obviously a friendly Svengali type of guy, but that's it. Just because you've had an email correspondence with him doesn't make you guilty. So Clive Palmer, etc., we think that's a beat-up. That's not the story. It's speculative in any case, and much of this is not speculative, the 3.5 million pages. So there's no evidence of Australians on Pedophile Island, no evidence of corruption really. Not that there isn't, but we haven't seen it. It's not evident yet, because it's not the story. Now, to be fair, to do both sides of the fence, to be objective here. These are all allegations. Yes, they're private emails. Yes, they're court documents. Yes, they're police files. But they are still not tested in court, so they remain in speculative territory, effectively, even though it's very damning, all very damning, and it is still a gigantic story, the biggest. But the fact is they have not been tested in court and probably never will be. It's just too big, and this is the problem. This is the test for Western democracy, for moral supremacy, for moral authority in the world now. Because if they don't pursue it, it's not going away. It will mark, it will fester, it will undermine the authority of America and the other Western powers. It's a pedophile racket running the world, a pedophile protection racket. I mean, it's difficult to grasp the seriousness of this matter and the seriousness of authorities not doing anything while the media plays the fiddle, saying it's no big deal, voters don't care. Yes, they do. It's bigger than that. A momentous moral decline, a time of great corruption and powerful pedophile networks getting away scot-free, abusing children with impunity. It's normalised the abuse of children, just as genocide and war crimes and invading other countries against international law have been normalised. That's the leadership to which we adhere. Our craven politicians on both sides of the House, kowtowing, bowing and scraping to, effectively, Caligula, the orange Caligula in the White House, who's mentioned 1,000 times or more in the Epstein Files. He's all over it. We'll get to that in a moment. To quote Hammurabi, the first king of Babylon, the first duty of government is to protect the powerless from the powerful. Now, he said that about 3,000 years ago, to protect the powerless from the powerful. It has gone exactly the opposite way now. This is the problem for Western democracy, for Australia as well as America, because the powerful are running a pedophile ring. They're being blackmailed. Other powerful people are blackmailing them so that they prey on the weak. The key is here that despite the weight of evidence in these files, only a woman is in jail. Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's accomplice. Yes, she deserves to be in jail, probably worse morally. The fact is, none of the perpetrators, none of the men and possibly women victimising these children, none of them have even been properly investigated. Bill Gates, Richard Branson, Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, Alan Dershowitz, assorted billionaires, celebrities, all big names. None of them even been called in for a chat to test the evidence which they already have. We're talking unsealed court documents, we're talking witness statements, we're talking 3.5 million pages of evidence. So all this has been normalised, while the mainstream media is discarding it as just another story and not much of a story. Where is the revulsion? Where is the follow the money? Where are the exposés? They're turning it into a joke. Where are the high-minded op-eds from these myriad think tanks and universities that get paid government money, our public money, to say important things, things of great gravity, and to basically analyse world affairs? Where are they? What a useless sector. That's probably 100 million, 200 million sector in Australia, these think tanks. All these people that get paid to opine. Where are they? Where's their analysis? They're too scared of their funding like everybody else. So where are we? We're at the end of empire. Xi Jinping in China must be licking his lips and doing Toyota jumps. This is incredibly good news for them. They're not in the Epstein Files. Hamas is not in the Epstein Files. Hezbollah is not in the Epstein Files. All the enemies, all the terrorists. Where's the Department of Justice? Does that need a name change too, like the Department of War? Where is the justice? What about the Federal Bureau of Investigation who've done all this work? Where is the completed investigation? Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Bill Gates, Richard Branson, Alan Dershowitz, the princes, politicians, billionaires, power brokers, not even questioned properly or interrogated. This is not some conspiracy theory. Go and have a look. Google it. The information is incredible. We're not going to go into assorted specific emails here because the story is so vast. That's what needs to be said. Let's play devil's advocate for a moment and just say that these are only allegations. The courts, the prosecutors, the police, they're not doing anything, they're only allegations. The guts of it, what are these documents? The US Department of Justice on January 30, 2026 this year released these 3.5 million pages. They're not the full Epstein Files. There are a lot of redactions. Some of it was captured before the DOJ went and took it down again. There is a lot of stuff there released under the Epstein Files Transparency Act, of which the government in America, Trump, is still in breach because he hasn't released the files and Congress has ordered they be released. There is a lot there. What have we got? FBI interview transcripts, draft indictments from the mid-2000s at the heat of this pedophile ring, at the height of it rather. They were never originally brought to court. Why not? Because they were muzzled. Communications, a vast collection of emails between Epstein and high-profile figures, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Larry Summers, Steve Bannon, bankers, financiers, industrialists, heads of state. And one of the key ones here, the key chains, which is obviously the amateur sleuths on Twitter are investigating, is the link between Epstein and Bannon, who talked a lot. And of course, Bannon was in Trump's ear. So Epstein is affecting American policy that way. Not that he's not a mate, of course, of Epstein, although he denies it. We've got multimedia. We've got 180,000 images and 2,000 videos, including photos of Epstein's homes, meetings with celebrities, Michael Jackson, Mick Jagger, Diana Ross. We've got all the legal court material, grand jury transcripts, court motions from civil lawsuits like Giuffre versus Maxwell, with documents regarding Epstein's 2008 non-prosecution agreement. Yeah, the cosy deal for the world's most infamous pedophile. That's what the justice system is doing in America. We've got internal case files as well, diagrams of Epstein's inner circle. We know the victims, they're unheard. They're just sitting there in the background with their allegations. People who were children when these monsters raped them. That's the guts of it. And people are joking about this in the media and saying it doesn't matter. It's been normalised. We've got psychological reports from Epstein's time in prison, records detailing the investigation into his death. There's some interesting stuff around that. All this stuff that the police, the good police down the bottom, not the greasy pole climbers at the top, had tried to stack up in evidence before they were muzzled by their superiors. Now, this is just a reprise of ancient Rome. America, the fall of the Roman Empire, where the moral corruption went hand in hand with the corruption of the political institutions which governed Rome, which made the state of Rome great. Likewise in America, which was once great. In Rome, the power of the Senate, once a legislative powerhouse, rendered useless a bastion. It was once a bastion of Roman integrity and honour, noble Brutus and all that stuff. They took it seriously. The morality declined and the political institutions declined. The highest office, the consuls, once a powerful, respected position, became an honorific title, which is simply bought, like you do if you want to be US ambassador these days. You give money to Donald Trump and he makes you US ambassador. I mean, so it's a bit like the system here, although it's more of an old mates club here, but there you just buy it. That's what's happened to the most wonderful country in the world. So they still regard themselves a bit, some of them. You simply buy things. In Rome, they had the veto power of the tribunes, checks and balances. That went out the window too, as power was centralised, and that's what's happening now. You see it with ICE. Now, the money trail. The files show that we know that Epstein was branded as a mystery billionaire. How did this guy become a billionaire? Oh, he must have been a mathematical genius. He made it in the mathematical options market, was one claim. It's in a response to the files from Nassim Taleb, who is a mathematical options expert. Taleb came out this week and said he always knew the guy was a fraud, because if you were dealing options at that size, you would have been picked up. He had no reputation for it, and the files show an ignorance of that kind of aptitude anyway. What Epstein was brilliant at, and there is no doubt from reading the files, he was a Svengali. He was no doubt very charming. He was a networker. And when you follow the money trail, this is how all this happened. He worked for Bear Stearns. BCCI, the corrupt BCCI bank, which transferred intel money around the world, CIA, Mossad, MI6, the Saudis. He was good at shifting money for wealthy clients and spy agencies. That's what he did. And through that network, as that network built up, he built a lot of intel on people. Being a social guy, he obviously got on well with people, and then the blackmail began. Once you know enough about people, you can blackmail them. So the mystery billionaire thing is just nonsense. The money trail shows that Epstein was shifting money for intelligence agencies and that he was an Israeli asset, which the Israelis still deny. It's absolutely patently clear from the files that this guy was acting for Israel. The amount of communications between Ehud Barak, a former Israeli Prime Minister, and Epstein is epic. Many island visits, completely compromising American sovereignty and security, Israel and America together. Lex Wexner, all these contacts, he was definitely running a honeypot operation for Israel, and that's why we now have endless wars, America and Israel bombing endless countries, genocide, the worst possible crime, even worse than pedophilia. That is what has arisen from this, because they are powerless to stop the rogue government of Bibi Netanyahu. And Netanyahu himself is in the files, not in a big way that we've seen yet, but Epstein's role there was teeing up meetings with Netanyahu. Some of the emails show, we got a meeting with Bibi. He was very highly connected. Schmoozing was his expert. But as noted before, a lot of the influence on Trump, apart from the pedophilia side of things, appears to have come via Steve Bannon, Trump's counsel, or Trump's advisor in Trump's first presidency, and Epstein was in Bannon's ear and Bannon was in Trump's ear. And there's a lot of information in these files about his involvement, Epstein's involvement in arranging security pacts, security deals, no doubt transferring money as well. Fingers in a lot of pies, a lot of different countries. That's why there's so many Arab princes, the pro-Israel ones, all mentioned in these files, all compromised themselves. And so when we look at the money trail here, we can see why this has all happened. If you combine that with this incredible lobby money, where effectively the American administration, which is a pedophile protection racket, gives billions of dollars to Israel. They're just signing off another 5 or 6 right now for weapons to kill people. Gives billions of dollars to the government of Bibi Netanyahu, and that money is returned, or some of it, not those exact dollars, but in buying American politicians, because most politicians, most senators and Congress people on Capitol Hill are bought off by IPAC, which is the Israel lobby group. They all get donations. They've all got IPAC minders on their staffs. This is the way that it works. This is why we get the decisions that we do. They must be in a bit of a tiz at the moment, all these IPAC minders, because it's very much on the nose over there. The racket looks like it's up, but unwinding these things, as history shows, can take a lot of time. That's why we're talking about invading Cuba, invading Iran, just interfering in other countries. Just what's next? Greenland. Distractions. These people should not be in power. They are pedophiles, either pedophiles or they are pedophile protectors. They have lost the confidence of most people with humanity in the world. Yes, they have their flag wavers. They have their grovelling sycophants in Australia and everywhere else. But everybody is getting onto it now. And these Epstein files are really going to expedite that process of the fall in confidence in institutions globally. So the money trail is not only proven, it's emphatic. Comes around and it buys American politicians. So you're either bought or you're blackmailed or both. And this week, Isaac Herzog turns up in Australia, the president of a country whose army is busy still conducting a genocide. 500 people have been murdered since. They're still bombing. They're bombing people in tents, refugees in tents, wallowing in their own sewer because they're not providing proper services. There's no care. They're just killing them, bombing them still from the air. They're too gutless to go in and actually sort things out. No, they're just bombing them. Still, children, men and women in tents, refugees. Since the ceasefire, 500. That's what's going on. And yet we are hosting Isaac Herzog on a tour of Australia. Well, let's hope he gets a rousing reception here, because this whole apparatus, this Epstein pedophile racket, is responsible ultimately for political behaviour in this country They're responsible for the changes to the laws, for putting people in jail for freedom of expression. It's going to get worse before it gets better, but surely it must be close to reaching an inflection point. People are sick of it. They want more honesty and transparency. They want clarity and proper leadership from the people that they elect. There's just no backbone except from a few isolated politicians. Meanwhile, it's too big, that's our view. They won't do anything about it. They won't pursue the pedophiles, Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, etc., or the alleged pedophiles. None of the men will be tried. There's a woman in jail. They won't be made accountable. This is a momentous event which will shape history for years to come. Our democracies are failing. They've been bought off. Our donations data this week. What a feeble system we have, where these people are protected because they pay their tributes in the form of political donations. Just as Hammurabi, the first king of Babylon, warned 3,000 years ago, governments have failed to protect the powerless from the powerful. If you look at Australian government policy, that's precisely what's going on. The rise in inequality because they're governing for powerful people, not ordinary people, not the people who vote them in. They're governing for people with money, for people in power, for themselves. That's the significance of this, and we appreciate you if you made it to the end of this video. And we feel really strongly about this because it's infuriating to see people discarding it as no big deal, or not seeing the significance of what is going on in world affairs. Nobody's saying it, or if they are, they're saying it privately. We have the evidence. The evidence is there. You can look it up in 5 seconds flat online. So please like, share and comment in the section below, and thank you very much. Thanks to our sponsors, Island Optical and Optical Superstores, for your support. We've got obviously the Herzog visit. We hope there's a huge turnout to welcome Isaac. What a guy. And so we'll be on that one very shortly. Catch you on the next.